There are two ways to animate, pretty much. I'm not talking about stop motion versus motion graphics or 3D versus 2D. I'm talking about straight ahead versus keyframing. Straight ahead is where we create one frame after the other, and keyframing is where we create the most important frames first, and then go back and fill in the gaps afterwards. Experienced animators often switch between these two styles depending on what they're trying to achieve. There are strengths and weaknesses to both of these methods, so in this class we'll explore what those are, and hopefully that'll help you figure out what's best for what you're trying to make. Straight ahead animation is the most intuitive style. If you've ever made a flipbook, you've used straight ahead animation. You make one frame after the other until you've worked through your motion. And depending on what you're animating, this can be incredibly fast and create beautiful flowing work. Unfortunately, even if you're animating digitally, it can be hard to adjust something you've already animated. What if I want to change this frame here? Now I need to go back through and change all the frames around it. For complex character work, this lack of flexibility can be a problem. Early on, animators realized these drawbacks and developed a process called keyframing. This is where the key storytelling poses are created, refined, and tested, and then the frames between them are created afterwards. This tends to be a faster method for complicated motion, and it's a lot easier to adjust as you experiment. Keyframing is sometimes called pose-to-pose animation because we're constrained by these key poses. One weakness of keyframing is that unless you're careful, the motion can feel robotic or unnatural. That being said, keyframing is used in a huge variety of projects, so it doesn't need to feel stiff if you don't want it to. With enough planning and practice, it's a very versatile process. In the next class, I'll show you how I animated this motion using keyframing. I'll share my process for bringing as much adjustability and life to the style as possible. So, both styles have their strengths and weaknesses. How do we choose between them? An analogy I like to use goes like this. Imagine you want to go on a hike. Straight ahead animation is a bit like setting out with a destination in mind, but no route planned out. You're free to wander through the landscape, following your intuition, your curiosity. And this can be fun. It can lead to some really interesting adventures. But it's also pretty easy to get lost, and you'll likely spend a lot of time backtracking to find your way to your planned destination. Keyframe animation is more like mapping out your route ahead of time. You pick waypoints and head towards them. This usually is much more efficient and will make the process a whole lot faster. But if you're not careful with your planning, you can miss out on some of those interesting discoveries along the way. This can result in things feeling a bit more rigid. As you can imagine, you can blend these two processes together. Map things out for some of the trickier sections, and have some time to explore and play in other parts. If you practice, you'll become more confident in making those switches. It would be easy for me to try to suggest exactly when you should or shouldn't use each style, but I think you need to experiment to find your own preferences. Having said that, I do have a couple of rules of thumb. Effects animation, like water, fire, and particles, will almost always be easier to animate straight ahead. Also, follow-through motion on characters like hair and clothes is easier to animate straight ahead after the character animation is done. The medium you're animating in does affect which style you might want or need to use as well. For most stop-motion animation, you'll need to use straight ahead to shoot your final picture. This is just the nature of the medium. That being said, a lot of professionals actually use a rough keyframing pass before they shoot their final picture, so that they can test out timing and posing. This means they can really commit when they go back and shoot everything straight ahead. On the other hand, if you're doing 3D character animation, I would recommend keyframe animation for most situations. This is because it's almost impossible to keep your graph edited clean if you're creating new keyframes for every frame. So just to recap, straight ahead animation usually feels more fluid and spontaneous, but it can be harder to control. Keyframe animation is often more efficient and deliberate, but it can feel rigid if you're not careful. In the next class, I'll walk you through a process using keyframing to plan and time out your work. The homework for this class is to create a simple animation, 2 to 3 seconds long, using either straight ahead or keyframing. Then switch styles and try to create the same action again. Notice any challenges or advantages you felt as you made each. And there we have it, straight ahead versus keyframing. When do you find each style most useful? If you've enjoyed this class, make sure you check out the other Animation for Anyone classes. They're all free, and we talk about animation principles and ideas. Oh, and make sure you keep an eye out for the next class, which is my process for keyframing.